The music faded as Emma stepped into the grand ballroom. Every crystal chandelier above sparkled like frozen lightning, casting reflections on the polished marble floor. People turned. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Her heels clicked with defiant rhythm as she walked further in, her heart steady, not racing. On either side of her, two identical boys, dressed in matching suits, held her hands. Nathan stood near the altar, tall, groomed, untouchable in his designer tux. His smirk froze the moment he saw her. His fiancée, Olivia, glanced between them, sensing something she didn't understand yet, but would soon. Emma didn't need to say a word. The silence said everything. One of the boys tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "Is that him, Mom?" Nathan took a small step back. His face lost color. Olivia's eyes widened as she looked closer at the boys. They had his jawline, his eyes, his silence. Emma smiled softly. She wasn't there to ruin a wedding. She was there to reclaim her dignity. With the two miracles he never bothered to meet, the air thickened, and for the first time in years, it was Nathan who couldn't breathe. Before the truth unfolds, make sure you're part of something real. Subscribe now and turn on the bell, because stories like this, you won't find them anywhere else. Raw, powerful, unforgettable. Don't just watch, belong. One choice can change everything, and the next story might be yours. Before the silence of that wedding hall, before the long stares and the whispered questions, there was Emma Collins. She grew up in a small Ohio town, the kind of place where people smiled even when they were drowning inside. Her mother, Grace, raised her alone after Emma's father vanished when she was 5. That absence left a wound that never quite healed. It taught Emma early how love could abandon you and how silence could hurt more than shouting. But Emma believed in dreams. She studied hard, worked 2 jobs, and got into college with a scholarship. That's where she met Nathan Carter. He was magnetic, charming, ambitious, with that dangerous mix of confidence and vulnerability. He wasn't rich then, just another student trying to make it. But he had a hunger in him, and Emma mistook it for passion. They fell fast. He made her laugh, made her feel seen. For a girl who'd always felt overlooked, that meant everything. She imagined a life with him, small but warm. A shared apartment, maybe a dog, kids one day. But there were signs. Nathan would disappear for days chasing business ideas, barely call, always had an excuse. Emma forgave it all, because love to her meant staying even when it hurt. Then, during her final year, she found out she was pregnant. She was terrified but hopeful. She thought it would bring them closer. She pictured telling him smiling, holding her, whispering promises. But the man she loved had already started changing. She didn't see it then, not fully, but the first crack had already split open. Emma wasn't naive. She just believed. And that belief would cost her everything. Emma still remembered the first time Nathan spoke about their future. It was late, their textbooks open but forgotten, the tiny apartment filled with the scent of microwaved noodles and worn-out hope. He lay beside her, head on her stomach, tracing lazy circles with his fingers as he talked about success. Not just money, but legacy. "We won't be like everyone else," he whispered. "I'll build something huge, and you'll be there right beside me." Those words lit up her chest. Not because of the wealth he dreamed of, but because she saw herself in that picture. She didn't want mansions or cars. She wanted to matter to someone. And in those moments, Nathan made her feel like she did. They talked about moving to New York after graduation. He'd launch his tech startup and she'd teach or write, something stable, something meaningful. They'd share late nights, tight budgets, inside jokes. He promised to take care of her no matter what. It felt real, tangible. A future being shaped in whispered promises and gentle touches. When she discovered she was pregnant, she panicked. Her hands trembled as she held the test, sitting on the cold bathroom floor. But deep down, she also felt warmth, an unexpected joy. A family, their family. She waited for the right moment to tell Nathan. He'd been distracted lately, always talking to new people, flying to conferences, shaking hands with investors. Still, she believed once he heard the news, everything would settle. They'd come back to center. The night she told him, his reaction was off. He stared at her, blank, as if her words hadn't landed. Then, finally, a slow nod. "Okay," he said, standing up. "That's big." Emma laughed nervously. "Yeah, it is." But he didn't touch her, didn't smile. He left early the next morning. She told herself he needed time, that he'd come around. He always did, and for a little while he pretended to. He called more often, brought her food, touched her belly with a kind of detachment she tried not to see. But the warmth had faded. Then came the night he didn't show up at all. One day turned into two. His phone went to voicemail. His friends had no answers. A week later she got a text. "Emma, I can't do this. I'm sorry." And just like that, her dream shattered. No explanation. No goodbye, just a hollow screen and the weight of two new heartbeats growing inside her. Emma stared at the message on her phone for hours, thinking there had to be more. Another text, a call, an apology, some explanation that would make the silence feel less cruel, but nothing came. Nathan had vanished. He deleted his social media accounts within days. His number stopped working. Mutual friends grew vague, distant. Some claimed they hadn't seen him. Others said he moved to California for a big opportunity. None looked her in the eye when they said it. She was 4 months pregnant. At night, she'd lie awake, hand on her belly, whispering to the two lives growing inside her. "We'll be okay," she'd say, even when she didn't believe it. Even when her voice cracked under the weight of a promise she didn't know how to keep. She tried to continue classes, but her body gave out. Constant nausea, exhaustion. She passed out in a hallway one afternoon, and the university nurse told her what she already feared. She couldn't keep going like this. So she left school. With no degree and no income, she moved back in with her mother. Grace, though loving, was working double shifts to keep the lights on. The stress was constant. The apartment was cramped. And Emma, once so full of plans, now spent her days lying on a second-hand couch, wondering where she went wrong. The worst part wasn't the poverty. It wasn't even the loneliness. It was the shame. She couldn't tell people what happened without feeling like she had failed at love, failed at life, failed at protecting her children from a story that had already started to write itself without her consent. At 7 months, she received a wedding invitation in the mail from a former classmate. When she opened it, a glossy engagement photo fell out. Nathan and another woman, Olivia. He looked different, rich, polished, like the version of himself he always dreamed of becoming, but now without her. Emma stared at that photo for hours. She memorized the smile on his face, the curve of his hand on the woman's back. He wasn't missing. He was just somewhere else, choosing a different life, a different family. And yet, she couldn't cry, not yet, because her body still had work to do. Because 2 small hearts still beat beneath her own, and because even when everything else was taken, she still had them. The hospital room was dim, quiet except for the gentle beeping of machines and the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Emma lay still, her body weak after hours of labor, staring at the ceiling with bloodshot eyes. 2 nurses wheeled in the bassinets. Jake and Liam, her sons. They were beautiful, perfect, tiny fists clenched, lips curled in innocent confusion at the world. She smiled through cracked lips, but her heart felt like glass. There was no one in the waiting room, no flowers, no balloons, no father pacing the hallway in nervous excitement, just her, and 2 babies who had no idea how unwanted they were by the man who helped create them. The following weeks blurred into survival. Diapers, feedings, crying, sometimes the baby's, sometimes hers. Her mother did what she could, but even Grace's strength had limits. They took turns holding the boys at night, both women exhausted to the bone. Emma sold her laptop, then her books, then her phone. One morning she opened the fridge and found half a jug of milk, a few eggs and mustard. That was it. She fed the babies what she could and lied to her mother, saying she'd already eaten. Her body began to deteriorate. Sharp cheekbones, deep circles under her eyes, hair falling out in the shower. The doctor called it postpartum depression. Emma called it drowning. Every night she'd sit on the floor, cradling both boys, rocking them while her silent tears soaked their onesies. She told herself it wouldn't last forever, that things would get better. But she didn't believe it. She didn't believe anything anymore. Her friends had stopped calling. People avoided her at the grocery store. She had become invisible, a shadow of the girl who once believed in dreams. And Nathan, he was everywhere. Billboards, social media, interviews about his startup success. He spoke of perseverance, ambition, sacrifice. He posted photos from Bali, Paris, New York. Him and Olivia, glowing, dressed in white, champagne in hand. Emma watched once, in silence, as Olivia posted a picture of Nathan kissing her forehead with the caption, "My forever." The rage hit Emma like a wave, but it didn't last. Rage takes energy, and Emma was empty. One night, Liam got sick. High fever. She rushed to the ER in a taxi paid with the last of her grocery money. She held him on her chest as he cried, his body hot and trembling. She broke down in the hospital bathroom, gripping the sink so tightly her knuckles turned white. "Why did you leave us?" she whispered to the mirror. "Why wasn't I enough?" There was no answer. Just her reflection, pale, hollow, a stranger. She stopped checking social media after that. Stopped hoping. Days bled into nights, weeks into months. One night, Jake woke up crying from a nightmare. Emma, half asleep, scooped him into her arms and whispered, "I'm here, baby. I'm not going anywhere." He looked at her with sleepy eyes and said, "Mummy's strong." She nodded, smiling softly as tears slid down her cheeks, but inside, she didn't feel strong. She felt like she was fading, and she didn't know how much longer she could hold on. If this moment touches something deep in you, if you've ever felt alone, forgotten, or stronger than anyone knew, leave a like. Share your story in the comments. You're not invisible here. Every voice matters. And maybe, just maybe, your words will help someone else keep going. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of day that usually passed without notice. Emma had just finished folding a basket of laundry when Jake and Liam ran into the room, each holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Look, Mummy," Jake beamed, waving his drawing. Emma took the paper and sat on the edge of the couch. Crayon lines danced across the page. Stick figures, a sun, something that might have been a tree. But in the center were three figures holding hands. Underneath, in crooked letters, it read, "Me, Liam, and Mommy, our team." Liam's drawing was similar, but his read, "Mommy is the strongest." She stared at the papers, her hands trembling. Something in her chest cracked, something long frozen. The weight of the last 2 years, the nights on cold floors, the humiliation, the hunger, the silence, it all hit her at once. But this time, it didn't drag her down. It pushed her forward. She cried, not out of sadness, but because for the first time in a long while, she remembered who she was. Not just a girl who had been left, not just a struggling mother, but a woman, a protector, a foundation. Her children didn't see her as broken. They saw her as enough. That night, she sat at the kitchen table and opened her old notebook, the one she used back in college to plan lessons and jot down dreams. The pages were yellowed, but her handwriting was still there. She began making lists, small steps, simple goals. Nothing heroic, just things that would move her forward. A part-time job, a GED test, childcare options. She circled evening courses 3 times. Emma didn't know where this road would lead, but she knew she had to start walking. She reached out to an old professor, emailed her resume to 5 local businesses, and called the community center to ask about night classes. Every call terrified her. Every form she filled out felt like climbing a mountain, but she did it anyway, because giving up was no longer an option. Not with 2 little boys drawing pictures of her as their hero. She wasn't strong because life had been kind. She was strong because she had survived it. And now, She was done just surviving. It was time to rise. The first job Emma landed wasn't glamorous. It was a receptionist position at a small dental clinic across town. The pay was barely enough to cover groceries and bus fare, but it was something, and it was hers. She woke at 5 a.m. every day, got the boys ready, dropped them off at a subsidized daycare, then caught 2 buses to work. She arrived before the office opened, sat at her desk with a thermos of coffee, and reminded herself, this is just the beginning. At night, once the kids were asleep, she'd pull out her notebook and study for her GED. Her eyes burned, her back ached, and some nights she'd cry quietly into her pillow, but not from despair. This time, it was exhaustion with purpose. A few months in, her boss, Mr. Bennett, called her into his office. He was in his late 50s, stern but kind. He'd noticed her staying late, double-checking files, cleaning the front desk after hours. "You're sharp," he said. "You ever think about doing more?" Emma blinked, unsure how to answer. He smiled. "There's a part-time admin role opening up. More hours, better pay. You interested?" Her throat tightened. Yes, I am." It wasn't a miracle. It was hard work. Noticed. That promotion helped her move into a small 2-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy, but the boys finally had their own room. She painted the walls pale blue and hung up their drawings like art gallery pieces. For the first time, they had space to play, to grow. Emma also started volunteering at the community centre on weekends, something small to give back, to feel connected. She met other single mums, other survivors of stories different from hers, but painted in the same shades of resilience. Slowly, her world widened. She laughed more. She cooked real meals. She began to feel like a person again, not just a mother, not just a woman recovering from heartbreak, but Emma. Whole, breathing, present. The boys thrived too. They brought home stars on their schoolwork. Jake loved math. Liam, stories. They talked about being astronauts and superheroes. And when people asked about their father, they'd shrug and say, "We have Mum. That's enough." Emma didn't have everything figured out. There were still bills that made her panic. Nights she second-guessed herself. But something had shifted. She was no longer just surviving. She was building. And with each brick, each choice, she felt a little more free. Just when things began to feel steady, life reminded Emma that healing isn't linear. It started with a call from daycare. Liam had collapsed during playtime, burning with fever and too weak to stand. Panic surged through her as she raced across town, heart pounding with every red light. At the hospital, doctors ran tests. Hours passed. Emma paced the halls, clutching Jake to her side, trying not to fall apart. It turned out to be a viral infection, scary but treatable. Still, the fear lingered long after Liam was discharged. It reminded Emma how fragile everything was, how quickly a life you built could crack under pressure. The hospital bills pushed her finances to the edge. She skipped meals again, took on late-night cleaning shifts at the clinic just to keep up. The weight returned, not in her body, but on her shoulders. Some nights, while folding laundry or packing school lunches, she'd find herself thinking of Nathan. Not with longing, but with a bitter kind of disbelief. How could someone walk away so easily? How could he live untouched while she fought for every inch? Then one morning, she saw it. A sponsored post on her phone. Nathan Carter, now a millionaire entrepreneur, engaged to Olivia Barnes. Their engagement photos were all over the internet. Perfect lighting, perfect smiles. Emma felt something in her stomach turn, but she didn't look away. Instead, she clicked. That's when she saw it. The wedding website, the guest list, her name. At first, she thought it had to be a mistake, but there it was. Emma Collins, +1. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. After all these years, after all the silence, he wanted her at his wedding. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a knife. He wanted her to see what she missed, to watch him marry someone else, in a world she was never allowed to enter. Her hands shook. The weight of the past rushed back, the betrayal, the humiliation, the ache of being left behind. She almost deleted the email. Almost, but something stopped her. Emma looked at Jake and Liam playing on the floor, their laughter filling the small apartment. They were everything she had, and everything Nathan didn't. She stood there, heart racing, and said out loud, "He thinks he's won." But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that Emma had rebuilt her life from ashes, and now she wasn't the girl he left behind. She was the woman he would never forget. The wedding was held at a vineyard estate just outside San Francisco. Gilded gates, marble fountains, and rows of imported roses blooming in perfect symmetry. Emma had never been anywhere like it. And yet, as she stepped out of the car in a simple navy dress, holding the hands of her two sons, she walked with the calm of someone who had already faced far worse. Jake and Liam were excited, unaware of the deeper undercurrents. They just knew they were going somewhere fancy, dressed like little gentlemen in matching ties and polished shoes. As they approached the grand entrance, guests began to notice. Conversations quieted, heads turned. Emma didn't flinch. Inside, the hall shimmered with soft golden light. A string quartet played near the front. The groom stood tall in a black tuxedo, laughing with guests, until he saw her. Nathan froze. His smile faltered. His drink lowered, and for a split second, the room fell into an eerie stillness. Emma met his eyes and held his gaze. She walked forward slowly, every step deliberate. People watched as two small boys followed her, identical in every detail, from their dark curls to the unmistakable shape of their father's jawline. Olivia noticed them too. Her smile faded. She leaned toward Nathan, whispering something. He didn't answer. Emma didn't stop to create a scene. She wasn't here to destroy his day. She had come to reclaim her own dignity. She led Jake and Liam to their seats near the back, then sat between them with poise. She could feel the glances, the curiosity, the tension, but she kept her eyes forward, like a woman who no longer had anything to prove, until Jake tugged her sleeve and said, loud enough for several rows to hear, "Mom, is that him, the man in the suit?" Emma looked at her son. His eyes were wide, innocent. She nodded once. "Yes, baby, that's him," and that was it. A ripple spread through the crowd. Whispers started. People looked at Nathan, then at the boys, then at Olivia. Olivia turned sharply toward Nathan. Her voice cut through the music even from a distance. "What is she talking about?" Nathan tried to wave it off, but his face was pale. His hands trembled. Olivia didn't wait. She stormed toward Emma's row. "Is it true?" she demanded. "Are those his kids?" Emma stood, calm and firm. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. "Yes," she said. "They're his sons. He left before they were born." The silence was deafening. Olivia turned to Nathan, fury in her eyes. "You told me she was nothing, that she was just some phase." Emma gathered Jake and Liam. She had no interest in staying for the rest. As she turned to leave, Nathan followed. "Emma, wait." She stopped, looked him in the eye. "Why?" she asked, voice low and steady. "To see me suffer. To parade your perfect life in front of the woman you abandoned." He opened his mouth, but she held up her hand. "You lost your right to speak the day you disappeared." Jake looked up at him, confused. "Are you our dad?" Nathan stared at the boy, at both of them. He couldn't answer. Emma knelt down between her sons, kissed each one on the forehead, and said, "Let's go, boys. We have better places to be." They walked out together, Emma leading, her sons beside her. And for the first time, Nathan Carter looked truly alone. Some stories aren't about revenge, they're about truth. Emma never planned to ruin Nathan's wedding. She didn't walk into that vineyard to tear apart his perfect day. She didn't need to, because the truth had its own power, and when spoken at the right moment, it didn't need to shout. It just needed to exist. For years, Emma had believed her pain made her weak, that being abandoned, struggling alone, failing and falling meant she was broken. But what she came to understand, through every silent night, every scraped-together dinner, every tear wiped away when no one was looking, was that her pain had shaped her into something unbreakable. The world didn't hand her justice. She created her own peace. And in doing so, she taught her children something most people take a lifetime to learn: that strength isn't loud, it isn't flashy, it doesn't need applause. Sometimes strength looks like getting up again after being left behind. Sometimes it looks like walking into a room where you're not wanted and walking out with your head higher than ever. Emma's story wasn't about what Nathan did. It was about what she became in spite of it. Not a victim, not even a survivor. A builder, a mother, a force. After the wedding, Emma didn't hear from Nathan again. Not a call, not an apology. But she didn't need one. She went home with her boys and made pancakes the next morning like it was any other day. Jake spilled syrup on the floor. Liam argued about which superhero was the fastest, and Emma laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Life moved forward, and so did she. Emma completed her GED that summer, then she enrolled in community college, one night class at a time. It took years, but she earned her associate degree in early childhood education. She found joy in helping other kids, especially the quiet ones, the ones who carried invisible weight. She became a counselor at the same center that once helped her. The walls she used to clean, she now walked through as a mentor, a voice of calm, a reminder that broken beginnings don't mean broken endings. Jake and Liam grew up knowing their story, not with bitterness but with pride. They watched their mother build a life from nothing and carry them through storms without ever letting go. They didn't miss what they never had, because what they had was enough, more than enough. They had Emma. Have you ever been invited somewhere not out of love but out of cruelty? Emma was. But instead of falling apart, she showed up with everything he tried to leave behind: her dignity, her strength, her truth, and her sons. Sometimes life puts you face to face with the very person who broke you, not so you can hurt them back, but so you can see how far you've come without them. Emma's story is about resilience, about rising when no one believes in you, about building a life that doesn't just survive, but shines. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever faced someone who tried to make you feel small? What did you do? What would you have done in Emma's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength or someone you love, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. This is O Peso da Escolha, and every choice has a cost. We'll see you in the next story.